Oh, hang on, Alex, you're muted. We're gonna unmute you. How about that?
Yeah, that looks good on my end. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Hi, everybody. Excited to be here at the Age of Conversation Summit. Seems like it's been a great event. Excited to talk about driving sales with virtual events today. I know this is an important topic to a lot of folks out there, and hoping to make this conversational and interactive, and have some slides and some data to share too that I hope will contribute to the conversation. Rachel, can everyone see my screen here? Should just have the...
I think we can see the screen. I can see it on my, I'm dialed in two different ways, and I can definitely see it. Looks like we can hear you. Yes,
Okay.
we got a yes from Sarah Thompson. Thank you, Sarah.
Sarah.
Yeah, and listen, you guys, again, this is being recorded, so hop out if that's a problem for you. Otherwise, get ready to be lucky enough to have a conversation with Alex Patriquin. And you can tell us a little bit about yourself and Circa, what Circa is about. You guys, please use the chat. You can unmute yourself. You can raise your hand. This is about, as they say, conversation. So here we go. Alex, it's all you.
Great. Thank you, Rachel. And it's a pleasure to be here with you too. I enjoyed our pre-event conversational warm-up. Yeah, so just a quick intro. I'm Alex Patriquin. I'm the founder and CEO of Circa. Circa helps enterprises with large in-person event marketing programs adapt to virtual and drive sales from virtual events. So we have a whole platform that does that. And before COVID hit in March, we were known really for in-person events, and the name of the company was Event Geek. Event Geek was founded in 2016 and has a lot of enterprise customers who've stuck with us in our relaunch of Circa. That's like Salesforce, Farmers Insurance, Honda. So these are enterprises that run, hundreds, thousands of events a year. And in this conversation and really this new world of virtual events, the big question is how to drive sales, especially in a B2B context. So hopefully that is relevant to a lot of the folks here in the session today. But yeah, looking forward to diving in and sharing some data from some of the events that we've helped to adapt. So since March, over 40,000 events on Circa's platform were adapted from in-person to a virtual format. And we really think virtual is the future. We're really excited about it. Of course, in-person is going to come back, and we'll talk a little bit more about how the two can be incorporated. But yeah, that's Circa in a nutshell, and my background as well. Cool. So to dive right in, I have a quick poll here I wanted to hand out to folks. If you go, you can click this link, or just go to circa.co/poll, and just asking kind of at a high level, how do you determine success for virtual events? And this is a question that we have a lot of data on from another source, which I'll share in a moment, but I want to give everybody a minute just to head on over to circa.co/poll and then answer this quick question. And you'll be able to see the results in real time as they update there too.
How do you determine success for virtual events?
Yeah, are you able to see it?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, great. Awesome, it looks like we've got some votes coming in.
Oh, this is a great tool.
Yeah, this is called Pigeonhole. It's a great company that focuses on just surveys and polls for events. They're based out of Singapore, and yeah, very nice tool, very quick and easy to use. Also plays well with other event technology, which I think is really important in this day and age. Okay, great. So it looks like we've got a good number of responses in so far. So this same question was asked to about 2,200 other event professionals. And the results are pretty interesting. So 87% said that opportunities created is the #1 success criteria. 85% said attendee satisfaction. And then in kind of more of the second tier, number of attendees and deals closed and staying on budget, followed by social media were the other success factors. So I think that resonates fairly consistent with what we've seen just now in the poll in our audience here. So that's good to know, hopefully kind of alignment there in the content of this presentation anyway. I think for most marketers, opportunities created is the key metric. I'm curious, just throw a question out there to the audience. Is there anything that wasn't in this response set that you wish had been in here that you think about when you're producing virtual events?
Awareness.
Awareness.
Brand awareness.
Brand awareness. That's a great one. Yeah. Great. Yeah, I think brand awareness is you know, one of the great things about virtual events is you can have such a great reach with them at such a low cost. So driving top of funnel awareness definitely is a consideration.
Other comments from the group are opportunities in the room and repeat customers and attendees.
Awesome. Yeah, I would love to hear more about opportunities in the room. Does someone mean like the quality of the attendees that are at that event and that are engaging?
Yeah, hi, this is Allie. Sorry, wait, I'll turn on my camera. I'm with Salesforce, and that's just kind of one of the immediate metrics that we measure. As you know, we kind of measure the opportunities created and deals closed and more like 90 days out. So kind of the immediate metric, like day after the event, the success metric is how much open pipeline did we get to attend the event, you know, as a result of our marketing and positioning of the event.
Awesome. That makes a ton of sense. Great. Yeah, and I think repeat, someone said repeat attendees. I'd love to hear more about that if whoever put that in would like to chime in and explain a little bit more.
Maura, did you want to talk about that at all? Repeat attendees.
Oh, sorry. I just meant like, you know, for instance, like we've been doing a lot of, we have a destination marketing company. And so we do a lot of these events for like virtual, you know, fam trips and site visits and stuff like that. And we pretty much have, you know, the same audience, and that's who we target for these events. So if we see like repeat attendees, that's telling us we're, you know, doing something well, or if we're not, then, you know, maybe we need to change things up or spice things up a little bit.
That's great. Yeah, definitely a very good indicator to repeat attendees. Awesome. So yeah, I think as we continue to look at virtual events, all of these success factors are really important. Some more so to others, depending on the kind of business that you run, but all really relevant. And taking a look at kind of opportunity creation and some statistics from the past 6 months. This is data from HubSpot. You can go on HubSpot's website and look at kind of COVID data index, I think they call it. But I grabbed this screenshot a couple minutes ago, and the data here is indexed to pre-COVID activity. So it's not like 20% of deals are up over all time. It's indexed to what the data was in HubSpot's databases before COVID hit, right? But you can see that like over the course of the past 6 months, it's been pretty bad out there, right? So, you know, 40% in April at that low point. And now in the past month or two, it's starting to pick up again. And of course, this data varies greatly by kind of industry and what how your company has been impacted by COVID. So obviously the kind of SaaS collaboration tools out there are doing really well, and then other types of businesses like you know, travel businesses, for example, have been impacted really negatively. And you can actually break it down by industry and find your own industry in this HubSpot benchmark data if you want. But in aggregate, it does seem like sales activity and opportunities being created has been picking up over the past month or two relative to where it was before pre-COVID. So in looking at all of this data and looking at the timeline and talking to our customers at Circa, we've identified what we are calling 4 phases of sales-driven virtual events. And these are 4 phases that I think every company goes through in the big pivot over to virtual. And some have moved through them very quickly and are kind of the real innovators and leaders. And some of them are maybe slowed up on, you know, phase 2 or phase 3, and doing it kind of doing things, you know, in a way that's effective and really enables the later phases. And I think some are just kind of still waiting on the sidelines and haven't even tried pivoting to virtual yet. You know, for all of the news and the LinkedIn posts that we see about virtual events and the record attendance numbers, the fact is, according to the data that we've seen, kind of broad surveys shows that most companies that did in-person events before, whether that was as a host or a sponsor or exhibitor, aren't doing anything now. They're not doing any virtual events at all, or maybe they tried one, but it wasn't effective enough to really warrant doing additional ones. There's a great blog post on Event Manager blog about this, and I can share that in kind of the footnotes today. I'll put it into the Kiko room. But I think point being that that this is really like a process, and as the return of in-person events and the kind of back to normal falls further and further back, I think it's good to think about, you know, how companies can really utilize virtual events to drive sales and taking a process-based approach to it. So that's what we've taken a stab at here with these 4 phases. But I would love to get everyone's feedback on this and see how it makes sense or doesn't make sense for your own companies. So diving into the 4 phases, the first phase is fast pivot to virtual. So in this phase, basically this is, I think, I'm going to skip ahead 1 second. This is what happened back in March, where all of the kind of in-person events were canceled, and then immediately we saw the kind of innovators and the early adopters leaning really heavily into virtual events and setting it up and running with it. Just to get a sense of kind of where folks are coming from, there's another quick question there on kind of how many events your company has done virtually this year. It looks like nobody's quite answered that yet, but would love to see more responses. It's the same question. You might have to click through the previous question here, but that will help, I think, give everybody a sense of kind of you know, how much experience folks have in this room, the virtual audience. So we'll come back to that. But so yeah, the first phase here is this fast pivot to virtual. That I think has been pretty established at this point. You know, virtual events, everybody knows they're really taking off right now. The next phase, and one I think that Liz and the Haute Dokimazo team have done a really great job at, is rethinking about virtual events on their own terms and with the kind of right-sized strategy in terms of the content and the production. And I think this Age of Conversation event is really great evidence of how well and deeply Liz and her team have thought about that. So
I have an idea.
Yep.
So Bob the planner mentioned something in an earlier part of the chat that was just about networking ability. Like one of the important factors for success of a virtual event is, do the attendees get a networking ability? And what Haute Dokimazo has done here is provide a networking ability. It's exactly like to use the word that everyone hates, pivot. It's exactly the kind of thing that you have to figure out how to change up so that people can still network. Bob, did you have any other thoughts about just the importance of the networking opportunities for attendees?
I'm just really interested in this whole concept of this live conversation format. And I felt as though I'm seeing more conversation going on in the chat than I am interactively. And this session has had much more interaction than most of the sessions I've attended so far. So, but what I find myself doing is looking up people who I see that I want to connect with, either because of their background or because of some of the comments they've made. Go and look them up on LinkedIn and reach out to connect with them there and continue their dialogue after the event. So I think that event organizers, virtual event organizers, would do well to train their attendees on other strategies like utilizing LinkedIn or utilizing like your room mother did, room parent Rachel did with the event manager blog resource, just to be able to give people additional resources over and above the speaker. I feel like people's attention spans are so scattered now with COVID and with Zooming all over the place that people are trying to attend to multiple things, especially as event managers. And while we are trying to give and attend to the presenter, we're also trying to accomplish a lot of other objectives. So it's almost like we need virtual attendee etiquette and how to maximize your social connections while engaging in virtual events. Does that make sense?
Can I,
Go for it,
Melissa, can I say something? So I think, so one of my clients is a tech company, and I'm very lucky to work with a CEO by the name of Billy Bosworth. He used to be at DataStax and now he's at Dremio. And we've been working over the last 6 weeks to try and figure out how to recreate the white space that happens at in-person events. And if you don't know what I mean by white space, I mean that time when the salespeople just talk to their prospects and start building that relationship. I think that's been the biggest piece that's been missing out of virtual events. And I think it's part of the reason why I'm not afraid of in-person events not ever coming back, because I think people are hungry for that interaction again. But I think that that's one of the things that a lot of these virtual platforms are lacking, is this ability to create the white space, to have just a conversation with people who are at your event, and also the ability to just engage like you would at an in-person event, raising your hand in a session to ask a question, and not just like doing it in a chat, but actually being on camera. And so when we were planning our first event, we looked at a lot of the platforms and ended up going with a brand new startup platform, because number one, it wasn't built for recorded sessions. It was built for live sessions, so that the speakers, all of our speakers, presented live. Two, that that our attendees could raise their hands, and when they raised their hands, they went into a queue. And when we selected them, their cameras actually went on their cameras, and you could see them in the session asking, you know, side by side, asking the speaker questions. And then for the networking, that they were able to just like pop into separate rooms and talk to people with like things. So they had badges and people could find things of like interest. But that white space, that's the part, that's what sells software or sells a commodity, is that conversation that happens in real time. And I think that's been the hardest part. And I think that's why you see those numbers that you see with events not creating opportunities as quickly, is because we're not connecting with people in the same way in virtual as we do as in person.
Hey, Melissa, question from the group from Sarah. What tool are you referring to? Excuse me.
We used a tool called Hopin. It's new to the market. It's kind of taking things by storm, but we used Hopin, and it's kind of cool because it's a startup, so they have new features. Like every week you get an email with all their new features. It's pretty cool. We were really happy with it. I'm happy if anyone wants to reach out to me. I'm happy to give an overview of what we did and how we did it.
Thanks. Alex, where do you want to go next?
Yeah, some great questions there. Yeah, I think that white space It's a big question for virtual events. I think a lot of what Liz and is trying to do here in the HD team and the volunteers are trying to do is really invite that kind of conversation and participation. And it's great to see in this session too. So thanks everyone for chiming in. But yeah, I think there's this kind of limited attention span that it's a fact of dealing with virtual events, and part of right sizing content is putting that first and foremost. And this chart here is actually from an event that we did back in March, and it shows we ran our event on Zoom, and it shows kind of the breakdown of time spent by attendee. So over 150 attendees spent 0 to 29 minutes. And I think if we looked at 1 to 29, a number of them would have kind of between, just 0 minutes. I think though that's pretty much to be expected. If you think about like a bounce rate on a web page, it's never 0, right? So there's some level of attendees who just are going to be very busy that day or for whatever reason, and not going to really engage for any meaningful amount of time. But at the other end of the spectrum, you've got something like 5 to 10 attendees spending 390 minutes, 419 minutes at an event. This was an all-day conference. I mean, that's a huge amount of time, right? It's like, wow, like, don't you have a job? Like, what are you doing now all the time, right? So there are, I think, always going to be those fans too, those people who, are just rabid about whatever you're doing. Maybe they're already customers. But I think the real opportunity for right-sizing content is in the middle, is something around the 60 to 240 mark in terms of time spent. And that's, I think, what really separates a webinar from a virtual event. There's a lot of different ways we can define those two things, but I think very, very rarely do you see a webinar that goes over an hour, and most certainly 30 minutes, right? So if we think about just one metric, which can be used for any kind of attention, whether it's online or in person, I think that's time spent. And as we think about kind of right-sizing content, trying to optimize for aggregate time spent. So maybe that's not 90 minutes in one single session, but it's spread out over the course of a day or even over the course of a few weeks. So yeah, right-sizing content based on time spent, I think, is very important. Yeah, to Bob and Melissa, so I think, what you guys are tapping into is the #1 reason that I've seen in all of the research for why professionals go to B2B events. It's for the networking, right? Like, if they wanted to take a trip to Barcelona, because they're going to go to Mobile World Congress, like, they would go to Barcelona anyway. Usually professionals have that kind of flexibility in their calendar, right? So it's not about necessarily, like, the #1 thing isn't like going to a great destination. It's not the content, right? Because we all know we can consume content online now. It may be the experiences, like the Kid Rock concert, but actually all of the surveys kind of show the #1 reason goes people are for networking, right? So if you think about events kind of breaking into these 4 categories around like venue, content, experiences, like, entertainment, and networking. Networking consistently shows up as the #1 reason why professionals go to B2B events. But in virtual, Melissa, as you're saying, like, where is that white space? Where is that hallway where people can just go and meet each other? And, and Bob, you were saying you go look up people on LinkedIn, right? So, like, isn't that kind of rude, like, in an in-person event setting though? Like, if you meet somebody in a hallway and you just take up your phone and look at LinkedIn, right? So I think that's kind of that intersection is really where the opportunity is for virtual events, is bringing that LinkedIn and all the insights that come from online in real time to the right person at the and enabling like a salesperson to use those to craft more effective targeted messaging on a one-to-one level, and a marketer to think about how they're going to structure their content. Again, going back to right-sizing content and strategy, how they're going to, what topics they're going to select, and kind of what the prospects or attendees content preferences are, right? And that's what we've done at Circa. So, over the, not to promote Circa, but and I think this is doable with other platforms as well. Maybe not in as seamless a way. We've kind of made it the one thing that we focus on, but certainly, like, you don't need to have a platform to take advantage of these best practices, right? If you have attendees, definitely go enrich their contacts with LinkedIn, understand kind of what seniority they have, how do they fit into your sales strategy, if you're doing an account-based marketing strategy, or are they a named account, and then getting that information as quickly as possible to the account owners, to the sales reps, and in a way that allows them to really target and personalize that messaging. This we've seen now, now that some companies are getting into this third phase of virtual event sophistication. We're seeing this now, and we're seeing the companies that are doing this, they're kind of increasing their lead when it comes to virtual events and to adapting to sales during COVID. And it's very challenging to do if you don't have the tools and the data at your fingertips, but it still should be done anyway, I think. When we did our event Reboot 2020, it wasn't like we got an email at the 200-minute mark that said, hey, Janet Doe has been in your event for 200 minutes. You should go say hi to her. She's obviously very engaged. But that actually is what we created over the past 6 months. And we don't have a patent on it. I don't think it's anything that you all can weigh to start really using the data availability of virtual events to kind of do that, in-person event, blocking and tackling, going up to somebody in the virtual hallway and saying hello and starting a conversation. And doing that allows your marketers also to create more targeted events, which increases the flywheel speed.
Alex, I'm sorry. Yeah, Bob is asking a question about how did you create the alert that you're talking about right now?
In this particular case, our platform integrates with Zoom and also Salesforce CRM. And so we basically just monitor the data and the activity and then send an email to the appropriate person when it meets the key conditions. But again, this isn't something that, we've even I would say come up with. I think we've just kind of packaged it and accelerated it in a nice way. But I think if you have access to Zoom, if you have access to your CRM, you can start doing this tomorrow.
Is Flywheel the name of the product?
No, that's just the catchy phrase I came up with this morning. I was drinking coffee. Maybe we should call it. I don't know. I'm curious, is anyone doing, for those folks who are, trying to drive sales with virtual events, is anyone doing this kind of thing now, either manually or, in a more automated way?
Manually, from Allie.
Okay, all right, great.
Manually. There you go.
Yeah, well, that's what we did this event Reboot in March, and we were spending a lot of manual time on it. I think it took about 20 hours just to for us to pull together this is aggregated across all Zoom sessions over the course of the day. So like today at Age of Conversation, I don't know, Rachel, how many Zooms are there? There's probably like at least 20 Zooms going on, right?
Oh yeah, there's a ton.
Yeah. So you keep aggregating all this up and uniquing it by just doing that alone takes like at least a couple of days. And by that time, it's almost too late because you want to engage that attendee while they're still at the event. So so yeah, this was a pain that we really had a few months ago, and what drove us to this. So when folks say they're doing it manually, I definitely understand where you're coming from, and I still think there's a lot of value in doing it manually as well, especially for the marketer and thinking about their next event and how they're going to craft that. So, this is the fourth and final phase, and I'll just try to shut up a little bit and let other folks talk, because that's supposed to be a conversation. So, but in the fourth phase, I think it's using those insights that do come from bringing all the data together to think about your next event and then your events in 2021 and even past 2021. And as we think about getting back into events, right, it's not going to come back right away at that scale that was before, and it may not come back at that scale and with the kind of the messiness of all the data that did before. Ideally, we can, as an industry, take advantage of this opportunity to bring in all of this data in a really available and reliable way. And what am I talking about? I'm talking about not having to convince your sales reps to use that really janky badge scanner that costs way too much. I'm talking about not having to pay $3,000 for an internet connection, having to export spreadsheets and import them into your CRM instead of getting home before 11 o'clock at night, after you've been on an exhibit floor all day. Like, all of those things really shouldn't come back, right? We don't want those things to come back. So how can we leverage this moment of opportunity we have to take advantage of, the virtual, when virtual is the only way to meet, and think about 2021 and incorporating that data back into those events, so we don't have to stay till 11 at night, and we can make those sales happen a lot faster and a lot more intelligently, and greater experience for both the teams, the sales reps, and for the attendees and their customer experience. So I think that data is there for teams that are starting to plan out to 2021, and with hybrid and kind of COVID, what we've seen is, and this is also in an event manager blog survey, another one, it's like going to be smaller, more regional events, right? It's going to be, invited folks maybe to a VIP concert that will be broadcast live to, virtual or remote attendees. So this kind of hybrid experience. So knowing what city to go to, who to invite from that region or that locale, and even like what band to get, right? All of those things are insights that you can gather now with virtual events, and then use in 2021 as you start to think about hybrid. So that's
question. All these people said manually, right? Everyone's like, we're measuring engagement manually. And Alex, you just listed off a bunch of ways and reasons, ways that we're doing it and reasons why it's difficult. Does anyone from the audience want to contribute some examples of manually measuring engagement during the event? Like how you're making that happen right now?
I can, again, if you, I ran a pretty big virtual event just in July. So we tracked every aspect of how an attendee engaged with the event. So from chats, poll answers, sessions they attended, exhibitors they visited, and then we had a ranking. We had a ranking system for pushing who was just a lead versus who was MQLing. So they had to attend a certain number of sessions. They had to have engaged with our booth, and each one of those interactions had points associated with them. So if they just popped in the booth and downloaded something that, or just popped in the booth, then that gave them like 5 points. But if they popped in the booth and downloaded a white paper, that gave them 15 points. And then if they attended a session that was presented by our company, that gave them another, 10 points. And they had to get to a certain points level in order for us to push them into MQL. Otherwise, they just went into a nurture campaign. And then the MQLs all got pushed, and our we pushed all that data into Salesforce so that our SDR and our sales team knew how to connect with them about their experience at the event and talk to them about things that they experienced. So it's a very, I mean, that's a very, very detailed path to MQL, but what we found with the events that we're sponsoring versus running is it's really hard to tell because, you know, they run gamification and they do all these things. So if someone just comes to your booth, you don't know if they're just doing it to get a badge or points to get, you know, swag or win a prize, or if they really are trying to interest. So it was really important to us that we came up with a point criteria, and we've now rolled that out across all the virtual events that we do, whether we're sponsoring it or planning it ourselves.
Awesome. Alex, can you see the question? Can you speak to engagement right now towards increasing pipeline? And kind everybody's echoing this. Everyone across the room is, I'm sure, shaking their heads. Our clients have real Zoom fatigue. Webinars aren't working. Level clients don't want to hop on the computer for another Zoom call, even if it's a mixologist or a chef, for example. I mean,
I totally get that. I think, this Zoom fatigue is real. There's no doubt about it. The novelty of virtual events is kind of wearing off a little bit. Everybody was kind of kicking the tires, saying, "What's this about? Like, can we replace in-person events entirely?" Oh no, okay. So here's some more rehashed content. Even kind of what worked 4 or 5 months ago with the kids, cooking or kissing the Blarney Stone, which I thought was great, but still, it's all kind of lagging now because of Zoom fatigue, right? And I think that the answer to that is just the hacks have stopped, like kind of the novelty stopped working, right? Like the tricks have stopped working, and it's time to get out the brass tacks, which is like, what do people really care about? They care, about achieving their professional objectives and leading their teams, especially in an executive role. So tapping into the insights that you do have on that front and creating virtual events that go deep on that. So, for example, with Janet here, we can see that she has perhaps downloaded some content through Marketo, or she's spoken to a sales rep and they logged a topic in CRM, or there was an email campaign or an ad campaign, whatever, any kind of digital channel, even what they may have engaged with at a virtual event or an in-person event in the past. Recency is probably going to be the best lever to pull in terms of re-engaging someone, especially where there's so much change in the past few months. But if you can find just that one insight, one of the great things about virtual events is that they can be so targeted, right? They're so low cost that you could just grab an expert in whatever that topic is from your company, have them come and do a 20-minute session, even maybe just offering like an executive briefing session. It doesn't have to be a virtual event. It could just be a meeting, and providing that at least that connection to that contact, especially that C-level contact, even if it's not an immediate opportunity. But yeah, I don't have much to add beyond using the data that you have to get really targeted and personalized with the whatever event or meeting will reflect this targeted contacts or segments interests. And I think that as we're seeing in the data, that kind of the novelty is kind of wearing off, and so it's kind of back to business and figuring out how to make all of this work. And that's the best bet at this point. Well, those are all the slides I have. So I guess I'll stop sharing here, and then we can just chat.
Aaron has a question. Has anyone done any crowdsourcing of topic ideas prior to their virtual events? The poll before the poll.
I can speak to that. From our internally, we have done that. We've asked folks crowdsourcing. It's been kind of an informal thing, not part of like a full survey, and it's been effective. But I can't speak to that, having seen it done a lot elsewhere. But I think it's a great idea. I don't know, has anyone done it in the audience?
Sarah?
Yeah, so we just added a quick question in our registration page that asked attendees or registrants, like, this is our topic, this is the event we're doing now, but what specifically in this topic are you most interested in? And kind of left it open-ended, and that enabled us to have an insight into their vision going into the event so that we could better touch on certain topics and follow up. So not the whole event, but at least some of the questions that they had.
We're running a event called Subsurface Sessions, which will have a total of 4 sessions running side by side. And each time period, there'll be one that is pre-planned with a pre-planned speaker and a pre-planned topic. And then the other 2 sessions will be hybrid unconference, in which in the registration form, we're going to ask them if they would be interested in presenting and ask them for a short abstract. And then we're going to do polling of the audience of which ones interest them most. And then at the event, we'll have narrowed it down to 5, and we'll do a 10-minute voting. And in those sessions, then they'll decide what the next 2 sessions are going to be. And then those presenters will present. But we haven't done it yet. It's just we're launching it in October.
That's awesome. Yeah, another thought there is a lot of networking events. We'll ask folks for their interests, and you can, do matchmaking. So absolutely that automatically, but you can also get great session ideas based off of people's topics of interest. If you provide a pick list, you can often get more responses that way, and could be really compelling to combine that with an open-ended follow-up question, like, hey, what specifically, or would you like to present on that topic specifically that you were interested in networking in?
One question that someone said was, do we really think that that virtual events are inexpensive?
Okay, this one I can definitely answer. EventGeek and now Circa is one of the few event budget planning and tracking tools out there. And most of it happens in Excel, but when you really need to have the reports ready for the chief financial officer or whoever is asking for them and should be able to see them, you wanted to have them ready right away. So as part of kind of planning the full portfolio of events for enterprises, our teams absolutely track budgets. They use budgets to plan hundreds of events. And so I can speak to that a little bit more. So there's no question the budget for virtual events is a fraction of what it would be for in-person events. Now, of course, it delves into details. It kind of depends on like how you define it. If you take travel out, it's, travel is an enormous cost of doing in-person events. And a lot of marketing teams, the travel doesn't hit their budget. So if you take it out, it's not as it's not it's a smaller ratio. Sorry, not doing a good job articulating that, but you get what I mean. That if a marketing team's tracking travel as part of their budget, then doing an in-person event, no question, is dramatically less. Now, if a marketing team is not tracking travel as part of its budget, then it depends on kind of on average, what we're seeing is a 60 to 90% reduction in cost, which is being, I believe, largely driven by the venue costs principally, as well as the technical production costs. I think though that the second part of that, the technical production costs, are increasing for virtual events. As we get into the second phase of virtual events, companies are realizing you can't just do your in-person event and put it on Zoom, right? There's a whole lot of, oh, and Dana's here, she can definitely talk to this, Dana Peak. Like there's a whole lot of technical production that goes into producing a really great virtual event. And that does cost, and companies are increasingly recognizing that that kind of high production value translates into engagement. It's why, you know, why we have television ads that look really slick, right? And even TV, live TV news, it's like really highly produced. It's because that those production values translate directly into engagement. So where production costs have been lower, they're trending upwards. Where venue costs were enormous before, they're almost non-existent now for virtual events, and for travel where they were before. So there's really, you know, no question that virtual events are a lot cheaper on average. Of course, you can always find individual examples, but that's the data that we're seeing across over 40,000 virtual events or in-person events that switched to virtual.
So three things. One is we have 9 minutes left. Another one is this whole cost of event reduction is getting everybody's questions going, so that's super fun. And last one is, while we're all still kind of together, if anyone has a list or knows of a resource for finding like a listing of virtual events, that's been asked a couple times in the chat. So if anyone has that, go ahead and throw it in the chat. Switching back to the cost per attendee cost factor, Melissa is asking, are your cost numbers like cost reduction per attendee or total cost? I mean, I think, as you said, it depends. And then Ali's asking about if Circa or anyone defines virtual event ROI. How do you define it? You know, usually we're looking at opportunities created divided by event cost, right? Has anyone shifted?
I think, you know, the attendance is so much, so to answer the first question, you know, on a per attendee basis, are virtual events less expensive? Yes, absolutely. You know, you can have a lot more attendees in a virtual event. There's, you know, effectively kind of no limit versus an in-person event where you have like a venue capacity. So I don't have the data at my fingertips, but you know, instinctually, you know, I think that has to be true. The second question, I'm going to come back up to this slide from earlier in the presentation. Ali, I don't know if you're here before, but we did a quick poll actually on kind of how do you determine success for virtual events. And if you want to see the responses from this group, you can go to circa.code/poll and submit your own response too. The question comes from a much larger survey that was done by Mark Ledick, and asked, you know, what's the success criteria? And opportunities created was the leading success criteria or KPI for virtual events from 87% of 2,000 plus respondents.
Well, yeah, sorry. I guess this question was kind of the next step of what this poll is showing. Like, curious how people, like, how do you define that? Like, what's the successful, like, opportunities created? So the measurement we use is we take that number divided by the cost of the event to like be a ratio. So I was curious if anyone else had a measurement like that and if it's changed with virtual.
That's interesting. So for your events, the ROI, when you think about ROI, you get both sides of the equation, and you look at opportunities created and divided by the cost of the event.
Yep. So we aim for, I think it's like an 8-to-1 ratio is kind of the benchmark that we've traditionally done.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, you know, on our platform, that's the kind of data that we produce, but not like in a ratio format like that. So I could check with someone on our team and follow up with you if you're curious. If we have metrics that are on that we can share. People have agreed to share. You know, I'm not sharing in an anonymized way, but I think that's a great way to think about it. It's very focused on the real value of the event, the opportunities created, versus doing like cost per attendee or even cost per registration, where engagement is so fleeting with virtual that, you know, that may not be the best metric to be looking at, right? Just be looking at just like cost per registration or cost per attendee. But there's there's really not a whole lot of ambiguity around opportunity created, especially if a team is using a CRM to track those opportunities. It's going to be a reliable kind of lower funnel metric that everyone can look to and say this is a real value from this virtual event that we've produced.
Five more minutes. Anybody want to pipe in with one last question? Also, everyone should check the chat. There's lots of good resources getting thrown around, so that's great.
Someone asked about the roundtables. There was, I think, Liz did a session on roundtables a couple hours ago. They've had a lot of experience in that, so shout out to Haute Dokimazo if you guys are interested in roundtables. There was a session earlier on that. We only have a couple of minutes, but I'm seeing some folks say that, virtual events are still equally expensive. I'd love to hear, maybe this is a follow-up conversation for later, but like, how so? Are you getting Kid Rock to come, or some other like high-ticket entertainer, or is there factors that I'm not thinking about? All right, well, it's the age of conversation, so I think what we'll do is break for now and then let folks run and have other conversations. But this was a great session. Thanks everybody for participating. Thank you, Rachel, for helping to quarterback this one, and really appreciate it.
Alex, you're the best. You guys can all go and continue the conversation, particularly in Central Perk. Is one of the places where you can hang out in the platform and chat with other folks. So with that, thank you. Thank you very much for joining. Thanks for being part of the event. And hang out next to hear from Ben Heinman from Splash about virtual event tech stack.
Stick around. Thanks,
Whoa,
Rachel.
there he is.
Hey, I got Allie in the room. Allie, I started geeking out on Prezi. See what I got going on here?
Nice.
This is basically I think Prezi is the new email footers. Wait till you see. I've been really geeking. It's a whole new world in there.
I like it.
Hey.
I used Prezi like back in the day.
I know. It is. Well, look at this. Watch.
I haven't used, I've been hearing a lot about it lately though, and I haven't.
Have you? I want to know who else is using it.
I haven't lately, so I need to refresh.
Here, 1 sec. Look, watch. Look what's going on here. Oh.
I just spotlighted your video. Look at you.
This is gonna be my presentation, but you can really have some fun in here.
This is so fun.
Isn't that great?
Yeah.
Look, I just want to talk a bit about this. Okay, now it's back to me. Not fun.
It's really fun.
Thanks. I'm psyched up about it. All right.
We have 10 minutes before you're officially starting. Is there anything?
I just want to talk. This is actually just an excuse for me to hang out with Allie. So as long as everyone else is cool with that, I think we just go with it. So, Allie.
I don't know. We have Dolly here on camera, but everyone else is off camera, so
Who knows? It could be anyone. Allie just had a baby.
Yeah.
I am, not me personally, but someone I know is pregnant, my wife. So I'm back in the game here.
Wait, did I know this, Ben?
No, this is brand new information.
Okay, I was like, wait, I knew you were like thinking about it, but.
What is the most surprising thing about being a mama?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I guess the thing that I've been saying is I just feel like I've known her my whole life.
Aww.
Like, here, and I'm just like, wait, like you're this like little mini part of me. Like you've just been here. I don't know. That was like a weird feeling.
That is weird. Humans, they come all with all these, they come like prepackaged, you know? It's great.